The commissioning of the carrier Fujian marks a defining moment in the trajectory of the People's Liberation Army Navy, not simply as an additional hull entering service, but as a visible indicator of China's accelerating transition from coastal defense to power projection. Discussion of Fujian often gets trapped in superficial observation, but the more meaningful question is how this carrier shifts the strategic calculus in the Indo-Pacific over the coming decade. Observers must keep in mind that naval warfare is not decided by a single ship, nor by short-term headlines, but by accumulation of capabilities, doctrine, training, logistics, and geopolitical intent. Fujian's emergence is part of that wider matrix. At the technical level, Fujian is notable for being China's first carrier equipped with electromagnetic catapults. This is a major departure from the ski jump configuration used on Liaoning and Shandong. Electromagnetic catapult systems allow aircraft to launch with heavier payloads and greater fuel, which directly translates to more range, more time on station, and more mission flexibility. With ski jumps, aircraft such as the J-15 were limited in fuel load, forcing compromises between range and weapons carriage. With Fujian, new carrier-capable aircraft such as the J-15T and later the J-35 can launch under conditions closer to those of the United States Navy's Gerald R. Ford or Nimitz-class carriers. This significantly enhances the combat performance of China's carrier air wing capability. It is also important to recognize that catapult-equipped carriers enable the use of heavier support aircraft, including airborne early warning platforms like the KJ-600. The presence of fixed-wing early warning aircraft adds a substantial boost to situational awareness and targeting networks, which is one of the central pillars of modern naval combat. A carrier without fixed-wing airborne early warning is effectively fighting with impaired vision. Fujian begins to correct that deficiency. However, hardware alone does not transform doctrine. The deeper story is how Fujian fits into a strategic shift in the mission profile of the People's Liberation Army Navy. For decades, China's naval posture was centered around defending its maritime periphery. The emphasis was anti-access and area denial, relying on land-based missiles, regional deployments, and missile-armed strike craft. But as China's global economic footprint widened, its naval doctrine evolved accordingly. Today, Fujian is both symbol and instrument of that pivot from near-sea defense to far-sea presence. It enables persistent patrols, presence missions, joint exercises with partners such as Pakistan, and extended range deployments into the Indian Ocean and Western Pacific. The ability to sustain deployments far from home waters will depend heavily on naval logistics. Here, China has taken significant steps that are often overlooked. The People's Liberation Army Navy has built a fleet of large supply vessels such as the Type 901 fast combat support ships, which enable carrier strike groups to remain operational without frequent port calls. The expansion of overseas logistics hubs, including Djibouti in East Africa and potential dual-use ports in South Asia and Southeast Asia, further augments the ability of the People's Liberation Army Navy to operate far from mainland China. Fujian, properly supported, is part of a naval presence that could eventually operate across entire ocean basins. To understand how Fujian may be employed in practical military scenarios, it is useful to consider likely areas of deployment. In the Taiwan Strait, A carrier such as Fujian would complicate the operating picture for the United States and its regional partners. However, it is worth noting that in a high-intensity Taiwan scenario, land-based air power and missile forces would remain China's primary assets. Fujian's role would be secondary but not irrelevant. It would provide additional strike and patrol capacity, enforce air denial, and coordinate with naval escorts. In the South China Sea, Fujian could support presence patrols around disputed reefs and artificial island bases, reinforcing China's ability to physically occupy contested maritime space. There, the existence of forward island bases provides a network of surveillance and refueling nodes that complement a carrier strike group. This is a form of incremental, coercive presence rather than open conflict. Beyond this region, Fujian may venture into blue water deployments in the Philippine Sea, Southwest Pacific, and eventually the Indian Ocean, where it could coordinate with Chinese infrastructure projects, shipping routes, and port relationships. Despite these strengths, it is crucial to maintain analytical clarity about Fujian's limitations. Expertise in carrier operations is not acquired overnight. The United States Navy has more than 70 years of continuous operational experience with large deck carriers. China is still in the early phase of mastering carrier aviation. Launch and recovery cycles, deck operations, sortie rates, command coordination, and integration with escort vessels are all still under refinement. The catapult technology itself, while an engineering achievement, still requires extensive testing under operational stress. Additionally, the carrier air wing is not yet mature. The stealthy J-35 is still entering testing and will take years before it forms a fully operational carrier-qualified squadron. These factors will moderate Fujian's combat effectiveness in the near term. The regional naval balance remains dominated by the United States Navy, which fields 11 nuclear-powered carriers along with extensive allied support from forces in Japan, South Korea, Australia, and the Philippines. Japan is converting Izumo-class ships into F-35B carriers. South Korea's carrier ambitions continue to evolve. India deploys 2 carriers but has slower progress in carrier aviation integration. Australia does not pursue carriers but invests in submarines and long-range strike under AUKUS. In such a strategic environment, Fujian is not a tool for immediate parity with the United States, but rather a platform that accelerates China's ability to behave like a second global naval power. Looking toward 2035, the direction is unmistakable. A nuclear-powered carrier, often referred to as Type 004, would grant China sustained endurance and global reach that conventional carriers lack. A larger fleet of destroyers, frigates, submarines, and replenishment vessels will build a layered naval capability. If China continues this pace of development, the People's Liberation Army Navy may become the world's second most powerful navy, not just in hull count, but in operational reach. Even so, strategic outcomes will remain shaped by training, alliances, intelligence systems, industrial capacity, and national will. The wise, analytical stance is neither alarmist nor dismissive. Fujian does not change the Indo-Pacific balance overnight. It does, however, alter the direction of travel. China is building the hardware, infrastructure, and doctrine of an expeditionary navy. The presence of Fujian signals an intention to be active on the high seas, to be seen, to influence, and eventually to deter. Naval power is not measured by a single launch ceremony, but by decades of investment. Fujian is one milestone in that longer journey.